of African Energy Consortium. Last but not least is Honorable Fuseni Issa. He is the MPP MP for Okaikwe North constituency. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Abna.
We'll start off with what has caught, the attention of the generality of Ghanaians this week, a rather sad incident, and we'll be looking at, this phenomenon of mob justice, mob injustice, some put it, and how it seems to be, with us and never going away. I'd want us to, look at this phenomenon essentially and try to understand how we could deal with it. The late captain, indeed, let me first, express my sincere condolences to the family, the bereaved family, and that we pray for God's comfort and consolation at this time. Very trying moments, but we do hope that He sees you through. So yes, we'll be looking at this and the issues surrounding it, why this happened and all. There are a number of allegations flying around. I mean, we can't, even go into that because, like I said in the intro, no reason whatsoever would justify such an act. So my concern perhaps is why continually we hear of such things happening. I will start with Mr. Jantua. Let me have your views on this phenomenon, mob action, generally, and then perhaps we zero in onto, the specifics of the Dencho Boase situation.
Abna, thank you. Good morning to fellow panelists. Good morning to our viewers. Abna, for me, it's not a new thing. When I say it's not a new thing, I don't know whether I can class it as mob action, but in the early days of independence, when you had the so-called CPP Veranda Boys, and you had the so-called UP action troopers, these things were going on. They were throwing Molotov cocktails. They were doing all sorts of things in the name of politics. And it's a bit difficult to see, but it looks as if it's a cultural thing. We tend to love outsiders but not love ourselves enough. And so at any little drop of a hat, we want to take the laws into our own hands. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to make the laws we have work. We have a huge challenge with enforcement. We have a huge challenge with people having confidence in the police. We have a huge challenge of people understanding what the laws are. And we have a huge challenge of not being able to prosecute when we catch people or we arrest people for crimes that they have committed. We were in this country when parcels of cocaine just got missing, just like that. And so far, nothing has happened. The sad thing is that in a very few months' time, this whole thing will be forgotten. And it looks as if we haven't actually learned from, and we don't learn from what happens in the past. In fact, today is the second anniversary of the 3rd June flooding. And as I was coming in, I heard a news item that the drains that contributed to the 3rd June flooding still haven't been fixed. On the news item too, they did say that the Odo River had been, what do they call it when you?
Destroyed?
Yeah, have been desilted. But the next thing that has happened is that people are defecating all along the Odo, and you see rubber bottles, plastic bottles are beginning to find its way back into the Odo River. And so you ask yourself, all the money that we spent in dredging the Odo River, all the education that has gone on, all the challenges that we faced with the 3rd June flooding, we don't seem to have learned from it. And for me, that is one of the most difficult things to accept. We come into the studio day in, day out, and we continuously talk about it. And so you ask the question, Is it a question of leadership? Is it a question of really and truly we don't care? Is it a question of we don't love ourselves enough? Is it a question of that patriotic element that we need to have to love our country, whether we don't have it? In fact, it was a very sad, sad, sad occasion this week. I don't know whether I should pat myself on the back for being able to watch it, but I did watch the video of the lynching of Captain Mahama. And the first thing that came to my mind was, I wouldn't even kill a dog that way. I would not kill a dog that way. One thing that hit me was a comment that one of the people made as they saw the gentleman lying on the floor. And I'm not trying to bring back anybody's hurt, but these are things that have happened. I heard one of them say, Amroba no wumui, the arm robber isn't dead. The next thing I saw was someone take a big stone and hit his head with the stone. And the way his head bounced off the stone, he was lifeless. And I asked myself, can human beings be that wicked? Especially in a country where we've never seen war before. We've never seen, the most we have seen is a coup d'etat.
A country that prides itself in rule of law.
Well, a country that prides itself in rule of law. But initially I said, priding ourselves in rule of law means that you understand the laws that are there and you're able to apply the laws. If the powers that be, those who are supposed to execute these laws and enforce these laws, are not doing it, what then happens?
Right. So on that note, let me move to Mr. Maliba. And I mean, several articles or comments have come up since this incident. One of them, you know, the statement by ex-President Rawlings, and a number of quotes in there that I'd like us to look at here. He says, for example, I'm quoting him, that when the law does not seem to be giving people justice, such acts of cruelty, obviously referring to what we saw in Dentra Obuasi, he says such acts of cruelty resulting in the unfortunate loss of innocent lives is the end result. Mr. Maliba.
Yes, let me start
the
by
statement,
saying,
what do you make of it and how relevant it is?
let me start by saying good morning to your viewers. That statement by the former president can be seen in twofold. The first one is why the law is so slow to apprehend or deal with persons who are said to have been in conflict with the law.
Right.
And so normally people who are affected by crimes feel that if you even arrest the person and you hand him over to the police, the law will be so twisted that you will find the person roaming the streets again. The other one, and that's the second leg of the former president's comment, is that we seem not to be enforcing our laws. Those who have the responsibility to ensure that when people take the law into their hands, as we saw in the case of the murder of Adam, the family of the victims sometimes wait too long or never at all for the law to deal with those persons. So you have a situation where right holders demand of duty bearers to discharge their duties, and yet they are not doing it. And so it boils down to who is in charge in this country to provide protection for the citizenry. We have heard in recent times how in this country people are now beginning to feel insecure. You can chronicle a number of events, and just last 2 days, a judge in Kumasi who felt insecure virtually had to pack bag and baggage and leave his post. Unprecedented. Never done. And so, the point is, who is in charge of ensuring that citizens go about their duties feeling secured? And that is where it boils down to the government that has been voted for to provide that security. If you look at the fact that when the president was being sworn in, some of the words were he would uphold the laws of this country and protect the laws. And so you want to see that for now, because of the insecurity, you can point hands at the government of the day and urge them to do more, particularly when the MPP in their manifesto in page 14 indicated that the previous administration did not provide the much needed security, and that when they come, they would provide the maximum security to ensure that Ghanaians go about their activities without let or hindrance. And so, what happened at Denchira Obuasi, for me, was barbaric. And I hear people say, we need education. Who in this country doesn't know that it's not good to kill? What kind of education do you want for that? It is simply because there's a certain feeling that if you engage in those acts, you can walk away freely. And we are all at risk. The excuse being given that he was jogging, lost his way, and was asking for directions. Look, if you know how the military work, I had an uncle who was in the military. He rose up to the lieutenant colonel. He's been telling me, missions, when missions are sent anywhere around the world, even in Ghana, the geographical location, and I know they know what I'm talking about, the geographical location of that place is being, they are taken through the geographical location. They even know the location more than those who live there.
Right.
It's a deliberate study. They will show them the geographical location. So to say that he was jogging and he lost his way, it's a cock and bull story.
In any case, like I said, no reason would justify such an act, whether he lost his way, whether he was caught stealing. Whatever reason cannot be good enough justification for such an act.
And recently, there has been an upsurge in the fight against Galamsey. That town, we are told, is a Galamsey town. Now, there are other reports saying that the military presence there seems to be hindering some people's activities in the area of the Galamsey. And so he was being targeted, or the army, and for that matter, he was targeted. And I think that time has come for the state to show its might and begin to enforce our laws. But I want to commend the army for showing extreme patience. The military I knew when growing up. See, I'm told that the town is a ghost town because people have run away. But the military I knew when growing up, that town would have been a ghost town, not because people have run away, but people would have been killed. They would be lying there. The military I know, there would have been reprisal attacks on that community. Those who did that dastardly act must bow their heads in shame. They are not fit to be called human beings. That's why he even indicated that you won't kill a dog like that. They are not fit to be called human beings. It's not everybody in the community who did that act. I know some people said that they were on their farms, and when they returned, they saw it. But those who engage in those acts are not fit to be called human beings and cannot live with us. But I'm gratified that the military have zoomed in, the police have zoomed in. Some arrests have been done. I've heard a member of the family indicate that they are watching how the prosecutions and all these matters will go. If they are dissatisfied, they will head towards the ICC. I think that they should be a bit patient now. The laws of this country are working, they can work, let's ensure. And I have heard Kojo Opon Nkrumah make the point that this should be telecasted live. I just think that whether live or not, the laws, there must be justice.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter whose ox is God. There must be justice done to this matter. And I think that it's about time that the government, you know, stands up and begin to ensure that people feel safe in this country.
Right. I mean, you mentioned that the town had become a ghost town. Indeed, the pictures we're seeing here goes to show, I mean, the police moving around, but obviously we have a ghost town now in Denchira or Boase for obvious reasons. But Mr. Maliba, in fact, and Mr. Janto, both of you raised issues, the core to this phenomenon, which has to do with law enforcement and a certain lack of confidence in the system by the citizens. And so they feel that, yes, we should take the law into our own hands and do whatever it is, well, self-help measures, if you like. So are we getting to the point where it's safe to conclude that, or it's fair to conclude that until we get that right, then this is the situation we have on our hands? Consistently, we are going to be seeing these things happen. Honorable, if you could take that for me.
Good morning to the viewers. Good morning to my co-panelists. I want to say good morning to my constituents also in the country. And Ramadan Mubarak to all Muslims watching the program this morning.
Right.
I think as a nation, we have been in a somber mood for most of the week because of this incident of Captain Maxwell Mahama. Loss of life in any reckless manner, such as what happened, is to be condemned in no uncertain terms. And I send my condolence to the immediate family, to the men and women in uniform, and to Ghanaians as a whole. I think that this is not the first, and it might not be the last
if we don't
sort of
put
incident
things right.
that we're having. I mean, as a people, we need to stand up to our weaknesses, I should say. Even after this incident that happened in Denchira Boase, there have been incidents or reports in the media of other lynching taking place in other parts of the country. You would think that there's a nation in a very somber mood at this time. You would think that it's a time for us to reflect on a lot of the factors that lead to such a mob, I would say mob injustice, because people are not given opportunity to be heard. We have to look at our systems. I mean, that I'm sure everybody will agree. They say that the wheels of the law justice grind slowly. And we have to find a way to give people the avenues to be able to put whatever their challenges are. I mean, those incidents, no matter how you look at it, as a people, it's you can't comprehend why this like this should be happening in a nation like ours. But then again, as a people, systems should work. We should be able to have a system where people will have confidence in the system and know that, look, if my right has been infringed upon, and I go to this avenue, I am going to get the justice that it's expected of me under a constitutional sort of government. Unfortunately, sometimes some of those shortfalls rise up in the system, and people take the law into their own hands. It's good that this incident is giving us an opportunity as a country to reflect on some of these things. The military high command is actually on top of the issue. The police are on top of the issue. We've heard the politicians speak, and I'm hoping that we saw June 3rd happen. It's the second anniversary today. We even saw the May 9 stadium disaster. Every Monday, Tuesday, we sit in studios like this. We talk about the number of people who die on our roads, as if we don't value life. We talk about it for days, and then after that, we go back to to the norm. We just it's life as usual. So we just have to come back to our systems, build systems that will give people the confidence to know that they will always have a place to turn to when they have such challenges. I think that this incident should be condemned in no uncertain terms. And it should be an opportunity for us as a people to reform some of our systems that will give some reprieve to people who actually suffer some injustices in the community.
Right. Speaking of the reforms in the system, I think some people, well, specifically, is it one MP, Honorable Kwame Enyimadu-Antwi, has suggested that there's a need for a law on mob justice. And I'm addressing this to Dr. Ahmed Chapo. Do you think it's a question of new laws or the fact that we have laws that are already existing, are comprehensive enough, but the question has to do with our lack of enforcement?
Now let me say good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners, and also to join my colleagues to extend my condolence to late Captain Mohammed's immediate family and his extended family. I think before I address that question that you posed, which in your questioning it even looks to be answered, because there are laws. We don't have any law that says that if somebody steals, you should go and kill the person. The laws are there. I think the whole issue for most Ghanaians is not about whether Captain Mahama will come back or not if the people are punished. The fact of the matter is, unfortunately, he will not come back no matter what you do, no matter what. But for us as those who are living, our aim is to look at how we can have a discourse such that this thing can be prevented in future. I listened to a Penny where he made reference to the fact that even in the Nkrumah regime, we had something called action troopers and veranda boys. And these were involved in all kinds of things. Today, about 50-something years passed down the line, we are still facing this problem. I think the police have a responsibility to ensure that a proper investigation is done to unearth what caused the death of this man. There have been so many theories that have been put across, some conspiracy and all those kind of things, but I think the onus lies on the police to do that. But for us, in as much as the police is doing their work, we must also look at it from the general picture. The general picture in the sense that I've heard some people who have said that, look, Ghanaians by nature in terms of this mob action is cultural. I disagree, even though there have been instances. In fact, whilst this thing happened, there was a mob action simultaneously in Somanya. If you remember, just that this one, the government of it has overshadowed that of Somanya, but Somanya's own was even more dangerous.
Apparently there was one in Kumasi as well.
I mean, when they went to attack a police station. The same period, there was somebody, a 64-year-old woman, who was killed in Upper East. In fact, recently, we are being told that a certain suspected phone thief was killed around Kumasi. Do you understand what I'm saying? So these things are happening. Why is it happening? I believe, and I strongly support what my colleagues are saying, that the police or the security system does not work. And in fact, it does not work. And the claim that is being made is even re-emphasized by the military. The military says they do not trust the police to investigate this case.
That was quite...
And I think nobody says anything.
Yeah.
The military is saying that they want to involve the military police because they do not trust the police. So if a military is saying they do not trust the police, who am I? An ordinary citizen from Denchobwasi. An ordinary citizen from Denchobwasi. If I do not trust the police, am I wrong? Yes, I'm right. And you see, I've heard so many theories being put across that this thing is happening because of A, B, C, D. No, I think the police service as it stands now is suffering not because of the actions of A, B, C, D within this short period, but it's a long period of neglect. Long period of neglect. And when I say long period of neglect, the police service has been overly politicized. Recruitment, appointments, everything. Is it time that we sit down as a people to re-evaluate the police service and say that, look, this police service has outused its usefulness as well as a service. Why can't we make them a little bit autonomous? Why can't the police service become an authority? In fact, why can't we make it such that The Inspector General of Police, who is the head of the police, is not one appointed by just the president, but there's a competitive arena where people can go to compete for it. And when I say compete for it, is it possible that you have commissioners? The position is open. There are benchmarks. You understand? You have different commissioners. You come for an interview. You are interviewed. If you are qualified, they give it to you. And you have a certain period of tenure? 2, 3, 4 years. If you are not doing well, then what happens? You are not renewed. Is it possible that the position of the CID chief, the position is opened, the regional commander? I mean, when we have a situation whereby people are handpicked, and you know what happened before the elections? Before the elections, there were about 30 transfers. They transferred people from here to here. Then what happened? After the elections, more transfers. I think something needs to be done about it. Seriously. We cannot have a system like this, where at the end of the day, people can take the law into their hands because they believe that the system is not working. I've heard a number of people who have made the argument that, look, at the end of the day, this whole issue of, what do they call it, mob action is something that we have to come out with laws. No, the laws are already there.
Exactly.
The laws are there. It's not as if the laws are not there. The laws are there. The only problem is that how can we make sure that these laws are implemented? And again, it will interest you to know that these pictures that we are seeing it because of technology. Do you know how many people who are killed in different areas, in different villages? People are killed every day. Why are they killed? They are killed because they believe that the system is not working. I think the onus lies on government, this present administration. I'm not saying that they can reform the system within a twinkle of an eye.
Sure.
But something needs to be done. Things need to start from somewhere. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And lastly, on this issue, I think, look, we are being told a certain DC who happens to be in that area has been asked to proceed on leave or whatever it is, suspended. Look, when you listen to the DC, his utterances, his demeanor, and his body language, all is reflective of the fact that the guy is not informed. And you see, the fact of the matter is that I've heard people say the guy was not on top of his brief because he had just been made DC within a couple of weeks. And the arrangements that have happened were things that probably he was not privy to. It could be true. But the truth of the matter is that the DCE from his first utterance was trying to say that this gentleman was killed because he's an armed robber. In effect, trying to justify mob action.
Right.
That is the thing. Trying to justify mob action. And do I fault him? No, I don't. Because even on this TV program, TV3, I watched TV3 do a couple of presentations where they talked about mob action. And what they intended or tried doing was that they tried to put across people who were mistakenly lynched. They started with one policeman, Kwaku Ninja.
Sure. And
they came down up to Captain Mahama. In effect, what I'm trying to say is that as a society, as a country, we justify mob action. We do. When an armed robber, truly armed robber, when the guy is seen as an armed robber and he's killed, nobody complains.
Right.
And that is where we have to have an attitudinal change. An attitudinal change. Today we are talking and we are making a lot of noise because it's a police and military captain. Legitimately so. Right. I mean, when you immediately find the military being being killed or being attacked, then it means that this state is coming to a certain level that is not sustainable. Which is perhaps opportunity, sad as it is, the opportunity for us to take a look at the system. So when you have something of this sort happening, it is worrying. But the truth of the matter is that as a people, as a country, we more or less, either consciously or unconsciously, validate mob action against criminals. Against criminals, that's the fact. Right. So if this DC has made a statement of this sort, I mean that, these DCs, are they trained? When they appointed DCs, are they giving any kind of training? But that's another interesting point, because see, the DC being a DC, he's the head of the DISIC, and should be on top of the issues. So much so that you can't say that you didn't know about the presence of the military in that area, assuming indeed that was the arrangement. Let me finish on this point. He's making a point of question.
The military actually stationed outside his area of jurisdiction. Yes. So it wasn't
directly
under
his
jurisdiction,
so
he wouldn't have known.
Yes, but honorable, but the point is that the DC was the whole argument or the substance of his proposition was not about the presence of the man or not. What he's saying is that the guy was there to protect galamseyers, illegal miners. And that is why
so making it justified.
Let me finish.
I didn't hear that.
No, he said, let me finish. Let me finish before you guys. He said the guy, the military man, was there to what? To protect illegal miners.
Right.
And that is why he was what? Lynched. In effect, what I'm trying to say is that his statement more or less goes to justify why the guy was lynched.
Yes.
And if it was the case that the guy was what? There to protect galamseyers or whatever it is, then so be it. There's nothing wrong with it. But the point that I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, we as a people, as a country, we don't see anything wrong with people being lynched.
Yes. I think that's a fact.
I even made reference
that is a fact.
To this stage. And let me finish. Let me finish. And if the DC, and as I said, his body language, his posture and everything smacks of him not being prepared to be a DC. But we also have to take the blame. Was the guy trained? Was he given any orientation? I mean, in fact, the fact of the matter is that even in our university, this small place, when you are made a head of department, you are given something called what? Head of department handbook. You are given through a certain kind of orientation. Anybody can become a DC. You are a banker, but the job of the DC is such a complicated job, such that communication, if you are not careful, even some of the most intelligent people in our society, like pastors and stuff like that. And I'll give you a typical example. For instance, Pastor Utabel. He said that why is it that we are making so much noise about this thing when a lot of these things have been happening? Wasn't that what he said? He said that. But the truth is that we are making noise because this guy is a military captain. Do you get what I'm saying?
Which raises issues about how we see humanity as a whole.
I think at the end of the day, let me conclude on this point. In as much as this thing is unfortunate, regretful, I think it provides us an opportunity as a nation to sit down and take a serious introspection of ourselves.
Right.
I.e., the police service, is it capable and well-resourced? Look, let me give you a typical example.
30 seconds.
Very quickly.
You're wrapping up on the bus.
Look at the police service. Do you understand what I'm saying? Two, we also have to look at government appointees.
Right.
You cannot just pick people and just throw
So
them
we
to
do
offices
have
and
a
stuff
problem.
like that.
We do have
you
a problem.
understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I think we need to have an attitudinal change.
Sure.
Also.
I'll move on to Mr. Maliba here. Yes, there's the attitudinal change, there's the institutional reforms and all. But I just want to refer you to an article. I believe this was by Dr. Raymond Atuguba, looking at the police service and a call for reforms. It's quite instructive. He's talking about the fact that there have been several attempts to reform, but it seems, in his view, that we're not tackling the problem at the appropriate place or the root of it. And he's talking about the fact that in 1996, I'm quoting here, he says, the then government of Ghana set up a high-powered committee headed by a former Chief Justice of the country to examine the Ghana Police Service and make practical recommendations for its reforms. And he says that the report of that commission is by far the most important police reform report ever in the country. Yet, even that report almost ignored the historical roots of the phenomenon it sought to change. Now, he raises issues about the fact that this police service was handed over to Ghanaians to run by the colonial masters with a certain mentality. And he is of the view that that mentality hasn't changed. Exactly. Sure. Do you share that?
I think so. I know Raymond has done a lot of work with the police. I'm aware of that. So coming from him, I will not be surprised that he's making those recommendations. The police service used to be called a police force, colonial time. When it turned into a service, it still had the characteristics of a force. So even if you look at their recruitment, the one who can run faster, because you have to chase a thief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the one who will be picked.
Exactly.
You know? And that was because the colonial masters took the police force as an institution that should suppress
the people.
The people.
Yeah.
And the people will definitely run.
Exactly.
So you need somebody who can run very fast.
You got to be fast.
You see? But as a service, have we sat down to look at using technology, ensuring that people who recruit there are at a certain level in terms of their intellect? And he made a point about politicization of the police force, where sometimes politicians can even boast that in my constituency, I have been able to facilitate the recruitment of 15 boys as a advantage to him for next elections. But when you look at the well all over, the police force or the police service, the well all over, is seen as an institution that invests in intelligence gathering. How many of our police people here would deliberately mingle with people and try to even put some people on stipend? Sometimes you even use the criminals themselves to unearth some of these things. How many times have we seen our policemen investing in the intelligence gathering? And so I agree with him that we still have a colonial mentality, and the only way he talked about opening up the IGP position for competition. But I want to add that I do not care who appoints the IGP. I think that the IGP's position should be made secured, like the CJ. You know that you may appoint the CJ, but you lose control over the person because there's a security of tenure of office. And so let's ensure, because normally when governments are in power, the police service seems to be tilting towards them. And we saw it. Immediately the NDC lost power, you saw the way the police was now behaving. They were now aligning to the MP. So these are facts. Really? Oh yes, that's it. You saw the massive turnabout and the fact that Kudalo had to go to Nana's house to say, I'm here, I'm sorry if I did something to you.
No, he's a commander.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
It's protocol.
No. It is clear. It is clear that the police force is unable to deal with persons who belong to a certain political group because their government is in power. And we've seen that recently. I think that the IGP's position should be secured. But for the DCE, he seems not only that he's ignorant, but I also think that he doesn't even know his own government policy on Galamsey. Because
he wasn't taking into orientation.
Because the government policy on Galamsey is zero tolerance. Now, for you to say that a military detachment has been brought in to protect the Galamseyers smacks of a DCE who is unaware of the mechanisms put in place. And that's why the Minister for Defense shut him down. I don't know where you heard that. And so, for the DCE, he should have been fired. I don't understand this issue of a suspension.
Fired for his statement?
Fired for justifying the act. And you know why he said that his community has been subjected by armed robbers to killings. And nothing has been done about that. How can you be talking about one person dying? That is justifying what has happened. Just as how I also think that his community should have been protected from armed robbers, I do not think that his comments about the death of Captain Mahama was reasonable. And I think that when you look at his conduct, he sought to fuel what was happening on the ground. And I think that he should have been fired, not suspended. Suspended simply means that there's a likelihood that he will come back.
Yes,
but this person,
pending investigations, because he did.
No, what are you going to investigate?
No,
that he didn't say that.
No.
That what he said was not inciting the people.
Mr. Maliba,
and that what he said was doctored. What are you going to?
Yes. So the point is, he made those allegations. Isn't it worthy of us to perhaps look into it? That this is what he said. Is it possible? Mind you, this is coming against the background of a BNI report that had, mentioned the military as actively being engaged there, and coming against that too, we had, Mr. What's his name, the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Mr. John Peter Amewu, actually on Galamsey sites engaging military personnel who were there. So I am saying, against that kind of background, perhaps we shouldn't necessarily dismiss what he said. It's worth investigating.
I think you are
taking away
your own position on this matter. no matter what.
Definitely no. I'm not.
You cannot justify
not at all.
whatever the military may be doing, whether rightly or wrongly,
sure,
to the killing of the.
That isn't what I'm seeking to do. Definitely not.
Yeah,
no. Let me put it on record. That isn't what I'm seeking to do.
He made the point that why should we be talking about one person's death when his community has been subject to armed robbery? Yes. That's what I'm saying. And that was a reckless comment.
Definitely a reckless comment.
As an administrator of the place.
Right, sure. Honorable.
I think that the issue of this DC is being
his suspension.
Overly. I won't stand brief for him for a moment, but I think that the appointing authorities have been very swift in taking action. I mean, he should have gauged the mood of the people of the country, of his district, and made appropriate statements. But the fact that an action has been taken against him, I mean, he's been suspended pending investigations. He had made allegations, and those allegations, like you said, cannot be just pushed under the carpet. Not too long ago, the minister actually went to a site and saw military personnel protecting galamseyers. And if
that's what were they protecting galamsey?
They were on the galamsey sites, and he engaged them. Yes,
fine. They were on the galamsey site. I mean, some of these things, right? It's there's a fine line. The presence of military personnel on illegal mining sites. I mean, what else? How else could it say? I wouldn't speak to the extent to which the DC had done, but I think that whatever the DC said, he's under suspension, and his comments are going to be investigated and appropriate action taken. We should give him the opportunity to be heard as well. I mean, it affects his area where he is the chairman of the regional security setup. So I think that he deserves a hearing. He will get his opportunity. But talking about reforms in our systems, I am happy that everybody is talking, and we are all going through converging at the point of reforms. Yes, right. We have a consensus there, and as a people,
and that is where the conversation had for a long time. The question is, what do we do on that basis beyond the rhetoric, which is the problem?
That is very true. Maybe as much or however unfortunate the death of Captain Mahama is, it's given us this opportunity as a people. I mean, today we are all at this table, NDC, NPP, CPP, civil society. We are all singing, and we are all talking about and converging at the point that, look, the system needs reforms that will give people confidence in the security apparatus of this nation. I think that the appropriate court is to pick it up and then push it forward.
Very well, thanks, Honorable. The reform of the police system, for me, I think is key, because clearly everything starts and stops with the police. Looking at the situation, and again, I'm quoting ex-President Rawlings. He says the recent acts of violence in Somenya and Kumasi cannot be taken in isolation. You remember what happened in Somenya?
Yes.
And a group of irate youth.
Yes, ECG.
Exactly. And he says they cannot be taken in isolation. Obviously, acknowledging the fact that this has been with us for some time. So let's not zero in on what has happened recently, but indeed, we shouldn't take it in isolation. It's been happening. They go, he continues, to expose a weakness in the general response to crime, again touching on the police. So for me, my question is, how do we walk the talk when it comes to the reform of the police? Practically, what can we do to reform the system? Because when you engage the police service, the personnel of the service, they themselves are despondent about the service. And it's heartbreaking. You talk about reforms, we need to change. They're like, well, we don't even know how that can happen, that kind of thing. And it's so depressing. How can we walk the talk?
Abna, most of us, from time immemorial, have indicated that we are not in favor of the way some of the heads of certain institutions are chosen. Look, one thing we have to be very, very, very honest about is that when positions are given to people here, they are giving that position as a reward and not a service. And so you see that in giving them the position, they have parties to that effect, their relatives hail them, people hail them, forgetting the actual service that they are supposed to be there. Now, parties have come and gone all this while. We've known all along that the police service needs reform. What has been done about it? Absolutely nothing. So it comes down to politics. And I'll give you a typical example of why I say it comes down to politics. In the sense that...
Please let me come in there. Yes, so there's a politics side of it. But what about the kind of recruitments, the kind of trainings we give? Because not too long ago we talked about evidence gathering, doing undercover work. Again, speaking to a bunch of policemen this week, I was shocked to find out that undercover work is literally, I mean, it's pretty much declining. But that should be the fulcrum of police investigative work.
And what are they doing about
That's
it?
That's the question.
Why do they not come out and speak about it? It's because we have put people in place as a question of reward instead of a question of service. Yesterday, I was listening to this judge. He was one of the judges who was supposed to be chosen. I've forgotten his name. Doche, yesterday. They launched this One Ghana thing. And he was asking the question that the police service needs to have people, according to their rules, of a certain height. And today, he sees policemen of varying heights.
But you see, that goes back to the colonial mentality which Mr. Amaliba mentioned here.
I don't take this colonial mentality. Why don't I take this colonial mentality? We've been 60 years since independence. Will it not change? Will it not revive?
Exactly.
Won't that all happen?
So it won't happen by itself.
Exactly.
It must be deliberate. You must internalize change.
Yes, I know it won't happen by itself. But whose responsibility is it for it to happen? I think, we need a mindset change. That's the basis of it. I was also listening to the lady from NCCE this week when she said they had gone to primary schools and, secondary schools to kind of educate the young ones. And she said the young ones asked some pertinent questions. If I have a father or a mother who is an armed robber, what do I do? How do I handle it? What do I say? Do I support them, knowing that my daily bread is coming from what my parents are doing? Whose responsibility is it? And so for me, we need a mindset. Now, typical example is of the constitutional review that has been done. What has happened to it? It addresses a lot of things where our constitution is concerned. Because of politics, has it gone forward? It's lying on the shelf, gathering dust. Nobody has said anything about it. It hasn't even been debated, let alone put in action. So why did we spend money in doing constitutional reform? Because a lot of the things that are going on is dependent on the constitution we have. It's the Bible of the country. And if, because of politics, we don't want to push it, who do we point a finger at? And let me come to the army. Let me come to the army. And there was this article with regards to the gathering they had. And if you permit me to quote, it says, we have military police. It is not in every instance that we allow the civilian police to be telling us about evidence. You have seen something clearly, and you are telling me about evidence? What more evidence do you want from this? The Ghana Armed Forces has the military police. We can handle our things. It is not everything that you take to civilian police. Some of the soldiers also call for a total boycott and discontinuation of all anti-lumbering and anti-galamsey operations currently being run by the army. What are the army there for? Are they not there to uphold the law? And Abraham was talking about, if this was some years back, you would have reprisals and attacks. Why? They do not have the right whatsoever to be doing that. They are embodiment of the law. And even if they don't have confidence in the police, it is not their place. Yes, I do agree that the military police are there. They can invite the military police in to also help with investigations. And I don't think a body like the army should be making such statements. I don't think it is right. Now, let me zero into political mob action.
Right.
That has been the basis. And if we are to bring it to today's political mob action, that a group of people can go into an establishment, because the president has elected somebody or chosen somebody, they say they don't agree, so they take mob action. And then it goes to court, the prosecution is not able to get enough evidence, so they are, I mean, what kind of system are we running? What kind of system are we running?
Well, speaking to somebody this weekend, the president described the whole system as a comedy of errors.
Exactly, it's a comedy of errors. And this is where we should sit up. Parliament should sit up. Why is Parliament talking about new laws? I expected Parliament to actually recite those laws that they have made that can help them deal with this issue. It's not a question of new laws. We have the laws.
The enforcement of it. And I think consistently every week we say that thing on the show.
Enforcement.
I think that the call for new laws was made by a particular member of
Honourable.
and not parliamentary. I mean,
very well, yes. So that was the Honourable in particular making that statement. But let me take some messages.
Whatever the case,
there was a call for a new law.
Whatever the case is, he's in the house. He's in the
very
house.
Well, gentlemen.
No other parliamentarian came up and said, we don't think we need new laws.
Oh,
let me take some messages, please. This one is coming from Amuzu Oscar Solo. It says he's in Joje, in the Volta region. He says, I'm urging the Attorney General that we, the good people of Ghana, we don't want to hear Noli Prosequi in this Captain Maxwell case, or else, well, we are not going to resort to certain actions, but we just hope the process goes through in a way that ensures justice. Good morning, Abna. The lynching of the captain is unruly, animalistic, cruel, and disheartening. I will wish that everybody related to this murder should also be made to go through the same type of death. That's Kofi Wayo in Santa Maria. Quite some harsh, but it goes to tell you how people are pained with this. But the truth of the matter too is we are in a rule of law and we should live by the law. This one comes in and says, fraudsters capitalizing on Captain Mahama's death. It says, Nigerian fraudsters have created a website claiming a donation is ongoing for the family. And within one day, thousands of dollars have been donated. It says, oh my God, please share and let's stop this fraudulent act. Okay, so this is what somebody is reporting. If indeed it's true, be on the lookout and know where you put your money.
Has he given the site?
He hasn't, unfortunately. He hasn't, yes. Well, Edwin in Achimota says, hi, Abna. I can't think far with these guys in Denture. I don't know what they are thinking, or I don't know what they were thinking. Can an armed robber be so handsome and gentle? Again, stereotyping, really.
It's got nothing to do with it.
Looks, exactly. This is pure illiteracy. I have been very sad since Captain Mahama's gruesome murder broke out in the media. May his soul rest in perfect peace, indeed. Hi, good morning to you and your special guest. Faith. He says, Abna Boni from Senya Breku. Seriously, I condemn the act of killing the captain. It is totally unfair and must be dealt with properly by by the way, my condolences to the bereaved family. Williams Ajay in Yendi says, good morning to you and your panelists. There's a saying that predestination cannot be known, but what happened to our beloved brother Maxwell Mahama can happen to anybody at all. What is happening now is that God is revealing all those who were involved in the gruesome murder. Politicians should stop their propaganda. A.U. Farouk in Tamale says, the authority behind the suspension of the Denture DCE and presidential, he says what, mistakes, it says clause 3 of Article 243 of 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana states, among others, that the office of the DCE shall be vacant as follows. So you are raising issues. But the point is he's not been fired yet. He's been suspended pending investigations. So we wait for that to happen and then we know what happened next. Good morning, Madam Host, and your humble panel. I think the indiscipline characterizes the youth of today and it's getting out of hands. The security agencies must rise up to stop this indiscipline among the youth. If not, something bad will happen to our nation. Says the President Nanado must do something about it, because since the NPP took over last year or early this year, Ghanaians' lives are under threat. And Wascott from Adeso says, good morning. Keep on doing the good job, but those who are involved in the lynching of Captain Max should be drilled before sending them to police custody. Silas also Setre in Kumasi says, for me, this kind of situation happens every day. It seems this one has gotten to the spotlight because he is well, you're saying because he's related to the president. I don't think that's why. Or the former president, you mean? Or because he's in the army? Or because now that we are becoming aware, I don't know. One man was linked at Kumasi and nobody seems to be aware of that. But this kind of situation is so bad and it takes us back in our journey of democracy. Let me take the last one and then we go for a break. I don't know why Ghanaians have become too violent. Even animals will not do this to their fellow animals. And that is Kofi Wayo in Santa Maria. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we move on. We'll wrap up on this subject and move on to the other topics lined up for discussion. You're watching and listening to New Day Saturday Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is New Day Saturday Edition. We're live on TV3. We're also live on 3FM 92.7 and we're streaming live on the internet at 3news.com. We're also on our Facebook page, TV3 News, and we're on GhanaWeb.com streaming live there as well. We'll be wrapping up on this, the late Captain Mahama issue situated within the bigger context of mob actions in Ghana. But quickly, before we do that, let me take some messages that have come in. This one's a good morning. I'm enjoying your discussion. Someone duped me. I went to the police to report and he was arrested. About 2 days later, I saw the policeman drinking a beer with the same man. I was shocked. I was shocked. I'm Razak from Medina. Yes, I can imagine, Razak, you're shocked. We agree that the police service has not lived up to its expectations, but the problem is the citizenry. We have people who think lynching a suspected robber is okay. That's Niame Laboni. Now, much of the problem must be put on the police service. Ghanaians have no trust at all for the police. It is the most corrupt institution, and that has led to the death of many innocent people. I also support the military police to take over the investigation. This is Mutalkil from Tamale. I hope I got your name correct. Nana Kwame, he says this lynching of the captain tells us when you are on your way to an unknown place, you don't have to ask anyone, else the community will suspect you as a criminal. Rest in peace, Maxwell Adam Mahama. And indeed, that story about he asking for directions, we're not even sure about that, really. Now, we want to politicize everything in Ghana. Why don't we see how this barbaric act will ginger us as a people to educate the people about the need to change our attitudes and enforce our laws? That's Abna in Salaga, namesake. The DC comments are an attack on the Ministry of Defense and the Commander General of the military. How can a soldier on official duties protect illegal mining? That's Oscar in Bolgatanga. Abna, can you please explain to us why the NPP reps are the only ones who always sit closer to you? Okay.
That would be telling.
I'm sure that is just coincidence. Please, nothing to it. Nothing to it.
That's
A hero has indeed fallen. This, however, stems from the fact that people want to make quick money with little effort. Mob action should be a thing of the past. From Albert Kisi in Santa Maria. Okay, so back to the positioning of the panelists. I have no business arranging the panelists, please.
In fact,
it's done by the discretion of the production team, and so nothing to that effect. But anyways, we are wrapping up on this. 30 seconds, Dr. Janapo, please take us away.
Mr. Maliba made reference to the fact that the DC should have been fired. I disagree with him. Firing him in itself is a validation of the action of those people. Because if somebody does something, he should be given the opportunity to defend himself.
Right.
That's what it is. Secondly, I think regarding the DC, it's important and instructive to know that the DC made those comments at the time that this issue was very fresh. I mean, he was called around. I'm not trying in any way to justify what the DC said, but what I'm trying to say is that let's pose this rhetorical question. If this gentleman really was an armed robber, if he was an armed robber and he was lynched, would we have been discussing this thing? Probably no. Because it tells you that as a people, we have no problem when people are wrong.
It is wrong.
Thirdly, regarding the IGP position, I mean, I'm not saying the IGP should be more or less necessarily not appointed by the president. But what I'm saying is that the first step in reforming the police service is to give them some sort of autonomy. they need some form of what? Autonomy. And that form of autonomy should be one that is based on what? Merit. Your ability to perform. Such that if the position, I mean, at the universities we do that. When we have a vice chancellor position, it is advertised. People apply for it. But before you apply, you should have a certain what? Level. You understand what I'm saying? So if you're talking about the police service, the IGP position, why don't we advertise it for commissioners to apply?
Very well.
We are looking at what? The director for CID. Why don't? So I think the most important thing, and it can be done. It can be done.
Very
and
well.
it should
Part of the
start from
reforms
now.
we should be thinking about. Mr. Maliba.
You seem not to understand what I'm saying. I supported your IGP matter, but said that...
You said security of tenure.
In addition to that, he should have a security of tenure of office.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So you're speaking the same language.
To make it watertight. That's
right.
my point.
Okay.
So we are not at different wavelengths.
Right.
But you see, the police numbers, I must also confess, are inadequate. The UN standards is that there must be one policeman for about 500 persons. But here we have one policeman to 1,000. The numbers are not great. And so it's difficult for them to even conduct investigations. Coupled with that is you have some policemen who have been taken away from their core business of investigation and sent to court to be prosecuted. There has been a call to recall all those policemen who are doing the prosecution back to the stations for them to focus on their core business and then recruit lawyers at the Attorney General's Department to do the work. Now, when you go to the AG's department, there are a number of applications, so many of them from lawyers who want to join the service. But again, government keeps saying no money, no money. So part of the reform is to let the police refocus on their core business, which is the criminal justice department or system.
The investigative part of it.
Exactly. And when they are able to do that, I am of the view that we'll
begin to see some semblance
of a change in the way criminal issues are being dealt with.
Yeah. Very well. Honorable, sorry, Mr. Janswa.
And not a lot of people in this country have had the opportunity to travel to other parts of the world. But those of us who have had the opportunity to travel to other parts of the world, when you bump into a policeman from the UK, or you bump into a policeman in Germany or in France, they are an embodiment of the law. The moment you see them, you yourself would check yourself and know that you can't break the law. Why is it so? Because the people in the country itself understand the objective of having laws and know what the repercussions are if you break the law. I'm not saying they don't break laws. They break laws, but the police are effective enough to handle it. I was saying in the break that all these ongoing problems with Donald Trump, let them realize that he's guilty of some of the things they're investigating. See what the police will do. Compared to here, we put the president aside. Even a deputy minister, if he does something wrong, can the police go in and arrest him? Can they? And so it is important for us to first of all understand the essence of the law, to educate the people that laws are there because it keeps everything in check. If 7 parcels of cocaine can get missing until today, nothing has done about it. We haven't heard anything about it. Who is going to fear the policeman? Who is going to fear the laws that we have?
But I think people would themselves value the law or see what the law means in their lives or society when they are made to, experience the consequences of their actions, which is what we are hoping that would happen.
How many times haven't we sat on this table here and asked the question, Kaukudi, policeman standing there, motorbike jumping traffic lights.
I know.
You'd have thought that the police or somebody in the police service would be watching this program and say, that's the thing that they're saying. Let's do something about it. It's still going on today.
It is.
And even worse, Nowadays, if you see how the motorbikes meander between the traffic, awful and terrible.
Yeah.
But they have been meandering. Is it now that they have been meandering?
But no, the point I'm making is that
the
point I'm making is that the police should be seen to be acting.
That's true. Another pet peeve of mine is the sirens blowing in traffic, which is...
But
it
recently,
was banned. Exactly, but it's happening.
I told you my experience this week.
You did. That's what. But let me move on to Honorable quickly, and then we go on to the Galamsey issue.
I think that as a people, we are calling for strengthening of our institutions. I mean, the police service is up for discussion today. We should look at all aspects of the service, right from recruitment to appointments, to transfers, political interference. And I mean, I'm sure that as a people, we all know what the issues are, what the problems are, what the challenges are.
Right.
But we should also face up to our weaknesses. I mean, what the police services come to today is a creation of the same establishments, political interference being major. I am sure that, or I hope, that as a people we take opportunity of this unfortunate incident to reform these institutions. And I'm calling for security apparatus that are more proactive rather than reactive. I think intelligence gathering should be the way forward. Every district, I'm aware that every constituency has a BNI officer who goes about their constituency to gather information. What are the trouble hotspots? What do we need to do? What do we have to? How do we forestall some of these incidents? Who are in this place, and what are their reactions? What do they do? I mean, if we had all this at ready, I'm sure that while the DC came into office, he read his brief. Unless he knew the people at Ventura, Boise, and so some of these things. I mean, he knew that the presence of some military sort of detachment in the neighboring district. I mean, all of these things. I mean, we should be proactive rather than reactive, and I'm sure that some of these institutions...
I'm sorry, there was one thing you probably didn't touch on. Should this trial be televised or not televised?
I think Mr. Maliba mentioned that, so I didn't really go on. Whether or not, either way.
What's the consequential effect?
Exactly.
Of being televised?
At the end of the day, it's justice. Exactly. That's why I didn't really.
But the policemen also fear victimization.
Exactly.
Because when you find a policeman who insists on the law, and like your deputy minister, he finds that the deputy minister is in conflict with the law and is insisting on the law, the next thing is he's transferred to
exactly. So the political interference we mentioned, that's what it is. But let's move on to the fight against Galamsey, which this week took us to the courtroom involving Aisha Huang and the fact that she had been granted bail. I'll start with you, Mr. Maliba, here on this issue. I found the observations by the judge interesting here, and it pretty much touches or dovetails into what we've been looking at, the prosecution of cases by the state and all of that. The judge is saying that, well, yes, you opposed the application for bail, but you didn't do certain things. You didn't sufficiently prove to me that she would, one, interfere with investigations if she's released on bail. But even more importantly is the fact that the judge said, well, the facts that you have don't even support the charges you've alleged or leveled against her. That's the report in the media. Assuming that report is exactly what transpired in court, shouldn't we be worried looking at what recently happened in Kumasi, for instance, with the Delta Force thing, a lack of, evidence to back certain charges, if you like. Now here, facts not supporting the charges, so questioning the basis of the charges that have been leveled against her.
First and foremost, in Ghana now, all offenses are bailable.
Right.
Once you meet the requirement for bail. And so if you are able to show that you will not interfere with investigations, you are able to show that you have a permanent place of abode, you are able to show that you have people who can stand surety. Once you satisfy all these conditions, your offense is one which is bailable. And so even if the charges were capable of supporting, the evidence was capable of supporting the charges, bail would not have been refused once the conditions have been met. But if the judge observed that there was something wrong with the facts of the case, or even the charges leveled against the lady, I think that this is food for thought for the prosecution. And so it is a wake-up call for them to put their house in order. I heard a group that was not happy with the way the charges were couched before even this judge spoke about it.
Came out to say this, yeah.
And so it boils down to whether or not those who have been given the responsibility to prosecute and to prefer charges are up to the task. And it has to do with the competence of the police. And that's why we are beginning to say that why don't we employ lawyers to deal with these matters? Because the knowledge of the policeman, who particularly is not a lawyer, prosecuting, is a bit on the downside. And so it is not surprising that in recent times you are hearing the prosecution and the judges trying to dismiss some of the cases because your evidence must be such that it can secure a conviction. Now, you've gone to court, the case has not yet started because it's just an application for bail.
Bail, yeah.
And so for the judge not to limit his observation to just the bail application, but veered into looking at the substance of the case even ahead of time, tells the prosecution that they need to put their house in order. And it's becoming one too many in this instance.
But like I said earlier, I mean, a number of courts were specifically set aside for Galamsey cases, right? So of what impact or of what effect will that be if we continually see these kinds of things happen? You go in there, cases that would have to be thrown out because really there's nothing there to you know, go the long haul on.
Abina, you are right. You see, the essence of those specialized courts is one, to ensure speedy trial, and two, because they are specialized courts, the judges there understand the nature of the case, and so if you go in there, you are likely to get a judge who appreciates the nuances of the case. But the judge is limited in this regard. If what you bring before him is, excuse my language, chaff, and you are unable to prove the guilt of the person, the judge cannot help you. And so, yes, this specialized course will come to naught because the essence also is to deter people from engaging in those offenses.
Right.
But if you cannot secure conviction, the story out there will be that, you see. So I think that the prosecution must begin to be up and doing. But I think it also boils down to, and I don't know how the Attorney General can come in. These cases are too many, and the Attorney General cannot at every time be calling for the docket, for the docket. If that is going to happen, then we won't even see a case commence or even end.
Right.
So we need competent people to handle those dockets. Yeah.
Very well. Maybe so what does this mean moving forward to the fight against Galamsey?
In terms of the fact that they've released her?
Not the fact that they've released her, but the difficulties surrounding, you know, prosecution cases and all of that.
They have set up special courts for Galamsey. So why should there be a problem? The problem is in the detail in terms of how the prosecution takes it on and the kind of evidence that comes to court. Because the judge is there to deal with one side and the other side and see what makes sense. And if it so happens that the evidence they brought does not make sense to the judge, these things will happen. One would have thought a speedy trial would help do it and would help bring all the others to in. But yes, the wheels of justice grind slowly. It can't grind slowly in this particular instance because the Chief Justice herself, in her position as Chief Justice, sees the urgency of what is going on, so has set up courts, special courts for it. We should see quick. I mean, in the coup days, what was the courts we did have?
Tribunals.
Yeah, tribunals. There were special courts, which executed so quickly, and in terms of
they delivered on their mandate
when the cases came. It went through so quickly.
Those were kangaroo courts.
Whatever the case was, whether they were kangaroo courts or not, you could see justice being done quickly. It could be bad,
justice
it could be wrong.
Quotes.
Yeah, justice in quotes.
You don't want bad justice.
Justice in quotes. But you could see the urgency and the speed. Look, I went to do verification with PIAC with regards to those projects, the oil revenue.
Oh yeah, I saw you on TV.
Yes,
yeah,
had been invested in. And one of the projects we went to was directly behind the Offin River. My God. You stand on the banks of that river, and from as far as your eye can see, it's polluted. So it goes to show the essence of making sure that we are able to eradicate galamsey from the surface of Ghana's earth. Now, if the courts are slow, and even today, we hear that the police have also gone to arrest some people who are actually doing galamsey. So it hasn't been eradicated fully.
No,
now, if the courts are slow in prosecution, what's going to happen? The police don't have the wherewithal to be able to do the work they are supposed to do. And even if they have the wherewithal and they bring these people to book, they arrest them, the courts are going to stagnate it because things aren't moving fast.
But here the courts are not slow.
It's not the courts that are slow, is there?
Yeah, the system has been put in place to speed up the process.
Yes, speed up the process, but the prosecution wasn't able to give the right evidence for them to speed the process.
So is the prosecution.
And so if that is so, definitely it's going to hold back the court from being able to do the work they are supposed to do.
Right.
Now, I don't understand why, you know, in various cases that we've had over the years, I mean, in fact, between, even let's take 2012, ongoing, we've had challenges with the prosecution. What is it that the Attorney General's department does not have that is causing this? They have problems, no two ways about it. Who is addressing those problems? Whose responsibility is it? Because now we're going to have a special prosecutor. That too is going to add its own. How fast will the special prosecutor be able to exercise the duties that he's supposed to exercise? Are we financing them to make sure that they don't have financial problems? I mean,
I think at the end of the day, it's about us knowing exactly what our priorities are and allocating funds accordingly. Because if indeed...
Do we have the funds?
Well, that's not for me to say, but it's about priorities, I think, at the end of the day.
It's priorities.
Exactly.
But that is a huge basis. That is nearly 50% of being able to do what we have
exactly,
to do.
because really the galamsey fight is as necessary on the fields as it is in the courtrooms, you see. So we cannot be actively engaged on the fields, and then when we get here, there's a sense of a stall by reason of, you know, certain things not forthcoming. Because like Mr. Maliba said, the judge is there waiting. Provide me with the necessary stuff and then I would work with it. But if it's not forthcoming, then it raises issue. Let me go to Dr. Jinapo.
Before you go on, Abna, they have seized this lady's passport. They have, people have come to grant bail and guarantee. If for some reason or the other, she's able to get hold of another passport and leaves this country, what will happen?
Well, we of course, we hope
and it is
that
possible.
doesn't happen.
It is possible.
Well, anything is possible
Exactly.
in life. So, but Dr. Jinapo, what does this, again, what does this, some people have perhaps, it may seem a bit far-fetched, but some people have said, well, this is yet again another evidence that there's some level of, you know, a lack of commitment to move on in the fight against galamsey. So all these roadblocks, if you like, are being put in the way.
Well, I think, first of all, this mentality needs to be purged in the sense that it's being informed by a certain mindset that this lady in particular, and even with specific reference to the example cited by Openi regarding if this lady gets a passport, then she's not guilty. That lady is not guilty.
But she's standing trial,
Yes,
and she needs to
that
be
is the
present.
fact. That is the fact. That is why she's been sent to court. So until she's proven to be guilty, we shouldn't see her to be guilty. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure, definitely not.
I mean, I think the whole issue about this woman has been overly hyped.
But are you saying Mr. Janto was making
No.
it seem as though she was...
Yeah, because
guilty?
what she said, if she gets a passport, and why would she run? If she knows she's
I mean,
not
people
guilty.
do that. That's why they have
No,
absconding
she's
warrants
not.
and all. So
What I'm saying is that for now, she's not guilty.
And the law says she's not guilty.
Yes. The fact of the matter is that I believe this woman, her position and her influence and her stature within this whole galamsey fight is overly hyped. In the sense that, one, she's been described as the galamsey queen. In fact, in my hometown, around a place called Mankuma.
Those ones, they're selling newspapers.
Let me play. Around Mankuma, they look at I'm saying that.
And there's a queen there.
For all you know, she doesn't even know that there's anything going on there. Do you understand what I'm saying? Again, these courts that have been set up, people need to understand that those courts were not set up specifically for just galamsey. They are courts that exist, but they are giving an additional mandate and speciality to deal with galamsey. And it also goes to tell you that this whole fight about galamsey is not an easy fight. There are so many facets of it, and you make reference to some. One, stopping them. Do you understand? Two, prosecuting them. When it comes to the issue of prosecution, it takes the same format and the same way that what normal prosecution takes. So if you do not have your facts, or you are not able to what to profess the right charges, then definitely you are going to meet this kind of a stumbling block. And what is even interesting is that based on what the transpired regarding granting bail to this person, we are told that 4 new charges have been professed. 4. One of them, it says that what undertaking small-scale mining operation contrary to Section 99(1). So I asked myself, so what initial charges were given? You understand what I'm saying? 2, it says that what providing mining support without valid registration from the Minerals Commission. So what charges were professed? You understand? 3, it says illegal employment or what foreign nationals contrary to. So at the end of the day, when you look at all these things, Abna, it goes down to competence. We cannot win this galamsey fight if we do not what go on the level of what competence. You need to be what? You need to be well prepared. We cannot use emotion. We cannot use just common sense. These guys are very sophisticated. And what is even interesting and ironic about most of these things is that when you look at most of these cases, they are being fronted by Ghanaians. How come we don't see any Ghanaian being prosecuted? I wouldn't say that this galamsey fight is more or less a wild goose chase. No. I think it's a difficult fight. We need to be prepared. We need to be tactical. And whatever we are doing needs to be coordinated. It's not just, as I normally say, just pushing the people away. I mean, you need to serve some kind of deterrent. And if it so happens that these people who have been arrested and stuff like that, and they are not arrested, it's going to embolden the people. And it will even be, I mean, to say it will be catastrophic in terms of fighting and moving forward when it comes to this galamsey fight.
Right.
But when I say, you've provided specialized courts.
Right.
But you've not provided specialized training
for
the prosecutors. Because mining is a specialized area. The kinds of things that our prosecutors do on daily basis in court is not mining issues. So
perhaps they need to be even taken through the mining
law, the mining law. Yes. Because in some other sectors, you have specialized people. For instance, the forestry department, they have specialized prosecutors coming from that department. But the mines don't have that. So we make resort to the police. The police too have not been trained on this mining law. So we either do one or two things. Have specialized prosecutors within the mining sector, I mean the ministry or the Minerals Commission, or we train the police who are currently doing it to understand the nuances of the mining law. Very well. We'll need to take a break at this point. When we come back, yes, Honorable Fuseni, you have your final bite on this issue, and then I'll read some messages that have come through as well. You're watching and listening to New Day Saturday Edition. We'll be right back. Stick and stay. Welcome back. This is New Day Saturday Edition, live on TV3, live on 3FM 92.7, and we are on the internet streaming live there as well on 3news.com, also on Facebook page TV3 News, and on GhanaWeb.com. I will be going back to the panel, but before that I'll take some messages from viewers and listeners. This is Amadou Kumasi. He says, good morning. He says, there are several issues of this kind that have happened across the country, but when you send the issue to the police, you realize the person is set free, only to come back and harm the community again. I think that's why most Ghanaians have resorted to mob justice. Good morning, TV3. This is a national matter and must be treated with all seriousness, devoid of politics. My condolences to the family. That's Caesar Timbili from WA.
Good morning, Abna. Every act of lawlessness that goes unpunished produces a copycat lawless act. We failed to properly deal with Delta Force and Invisible Force thuggery, and are we surprised this heartless youth felt emboldened to end the life of a promising soldier? Ghana is in a state of anarchy. That's Delali from Kaswa. Jonathan in Accra says, much of the talking and preaching is done, has been done. We must hurry up whichever way we choose. Nobody wrote an application to join Boko Haram. This is how they started as a vigilante group. And that's Jonathan in Accra. Good morning. The video must be used as a solid piece of evidence to catch all those who took part in the killing. And she says the woman who ignited the march must be arrested. That's coming in from Nanabna. Michael Tamaklo in Kumasi says, I completely agree with Uncle Jantua on his assertion that Ghanaians need a complete mindset change. This can be done if our educational curricula is changed or are changed. What happened to the teaching of civics in our schools? Compare the attitude and composure of our elders who read courtesy for boys and girls. We have a generation that has absolutely no regard for simple law and order. I fear for the future of our dear nation. Prince in Jacobu says, good morning, I'm enjoying the program very much. The question we should ask in this modern time is how many police stations in various communities have their telephone numbers clearly written outside for people to call when an incident occurs? In the era of WhatsApp, Twitter, and other social media, how many police stations are using it? From Prince and Jacobu. I'd like to end here and come back to the panel, but to this particular...
It's a result of the kind of promises that the NPP gave them before they came to power. If you say that you are going to regularize...
No, there was nowhere the NPP... And the NPP never promised them that they were illegal mining was going to be promoted. You can't say that NPP promised that illegal mining was going to be promoted.
If you say that when you come to power, you regularize the activities of the Galamsey, then you come and your first action is to ask them to stop, they will definitely resist. What is the alternative livelihood for these persons? As a government, you promise to regularize their activities. You've not done it. You're asking them to leave. And so, clearly, the resistance we are having is as a result of that kind of promise. But when you look at the minister's own actions, you see a man who is fighting, you see a man who is committed to dealing with the matter. But I was disappointed when a BNI report named some prominent people in this country. And it took the minister again to come and rubbish that same BNI report. That for me was like shooting yourself in the foot. Because I thought that part of the fight against Galamsey is to name and shame. And so the minister had no business holding a press conference as if he's the spokespersons of those persons. Those institutions, those persons could have reacted to clear their names. But to have the minister, I think it was in bad light. But finally, you see, I'm shocked to hear from this panel that we don't know where these Galamsey sites are.
No, I don't think that was what...
The Electoral Commission is able to send ballot boxes throughout the country. How many are these our Galamsey sites? They are not up to the Electoral Commission's spectrum of delivering ballot boxes to polling stations. What stops...
Tell us, how many are they then? Do you know?
Ujubu.
The figure, the Galamsey sites.
Remove Amewu and put me there and see what I will do.
On that note, we'll take a break. We'll come back and then we'll come. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to New Day Saturday Edition live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and live on our Facebook page TV3 News, also streaming live on 3news.com and GhanaWeb.com. I will go to the panel for a quick wrap-up on the Galamsey issue, and then we go to the $2.25 billion bond that was issued in April this year. But quickly, let me take some messages. This one is coming in from Kwabna Afum in Diaso. He says, it's indeed pathetic for this innocent soul to be murdered, but the DCE's comments must be given second thought and investigations because we, the citizenry of Diaso, know very well the activities of some military men here in almost a year now. Why would the state led by the immigration leave a number of loopholes? Why would they present evidence, facts different from the charges and not tell the courts why Aisha need not get bail? Is there something we don't know? And that's coming in from Ronald Kobi Baji in Achimota. He says, good morning to Honorable Fuseni. He says, this one coming in from Zaid in Adenta Fafraha says, Abna, in the 70s and 1980s, it was difficult to see women engage in gruesome actions, but ever since the Beijing conference, which states that man can do what man can do, women can do it better, women have become worse off. A woman calling the assemblyman a woman seen setting the body ablaze, that's barbaric, God save us. Well, I'm not sure about your theory, but that's your opinion. Abna, good morning to your panelists. Please, if this case isn't handled perfectly, then our MPs, ministers, and even the president's life will not be safe, because the military is protecting the country. Please, let's be careful in the country. This is Kudo Yao from Volta region. I'm sure, Kudo, you should be worried about your own life as well, because it can happen to anybody. Abna, are you sure that they are not going to close their eyes after courts and grant Aisha that amount of bail? I'm not sure what this exactly means, but let me go on. This is one says, good morning to all, especially my lecturer, Dr. Jinapo. Abna, you know most of us in this country value money more than life. You and I will be surprised to hear that some of the suspects are allowed to go scot-free on the basis of paying large sums of money to the police. Well, that is speculation there. Management of our water resources have been poor, and Galamsey is compounding it. This is a life-threatening issue and must be taken seriously. Punishment for Galamseyers must be same for murderers. That is coming from Mutawakil in Tamale. Good morning to you and your guests. Our state institutions, especially the security institutions or agencies, have become too sycophantic and dysfunctional. And this is, he says, Boswell in team in Libya quarters in Medina. Let me take the last one. Good morning, Abna. Good work done. And your panelists, I agree to Dr. Jinapo. The issue about Galamsey cannot be won if alternative livelihoods are not provided for these people. We must have a comprehensive program for this Galamsey problem from the people, environment, and laws. And that is Bellot in Bator. Thanks for your messages. Let me go to the panel. I think, Mr. Maliba, you were wrapping up.
I was wrapping up.
Yes.
And so
Can
I
you
said
do that
that
for me? And then
if we know these Galamsey sites, what stops the government? We have what is called marine police, where you have policemen who are policing our waters. What stops the government from putting in place environmental police who will be at these sites permanently? Because when they are there permanently, there's no way a Galamsey can also stay there permanently and be fighting permanently.
Depending on whether you pay them well.
But
otherwise, they will go into Galamsey
But if you just go there and then flush them out, and you also come back to Accra and you're sleeping in your air conditioning room, they'll go back. And this issue of zeroing in on them has always been the norm. So they know that this period is a bad period for them. So they'll go underground. When you move away, they'll come back. So if we are interested in the environment, let's establish environmental police, just as how we had marine police.
Very well. I think that will be taken on board, because the whole idea is to keep the fight going, sustain it, and yes. But we need to move on to the 2.25 billion. We're running behind time.
Just one.
Okay.
I think Mr. Maliba made reference to the fact that one of the reasons why we have this Galamsey issue is because the MPP promised that they were going to. It's true. It's very true that the MPP did that, and probably that could contribute to it. But I think the NDC also have a responsibility. For 8 years, they were in power. 8 good years. This marine police that Mr. Maliba is talking about.
Brilliant idea, why would yes. But at the end of the day, that for me, the going back and forth really is not the way to go. What are we doing moving forward, which is fine. So the point is,
officers within the campaign, I am quiet at sea.
Google it.
No, there is nowhere NPP. There is nowhere NPP as a government or the land as then a candidate on a platform saying that when we can, we're going to promote Galamsey. Galamsey, we all know it's illegal.
What Mr. Maliba said was to regularize Galamsey.
Exactly.
And that was what was said. So that's what Mr. Maliba said. I think then you
the illegal bit is going to be taken out, but the system is going to be regularized, and small-scale mining was going to be promoted. And I see nothing wrong with that.
Very well.
If it's actually going to be done within the confines of a framework, it should be promoted.
I think the community needs to have ownership of this fight. This whole issue of policing, it will not work if the community do not buy into the idea and agenda that this thing must stop. Do you understand?
But there needs to be a starting point.
That is it. But the community must buy into it. The community must be made to be what? Responsible for what? For ownership. Because if the people in that community believe that, look, this whole thing that we are doing, whether the Offing River is spoiled or not, and that is why we have chiefs who have been fingered. Who gives them the land? Are the chiefs. Exactly. Who are the people who work as laborers? The people. So I think there needs to be a partnership. The community must be what? Must be involved. You can't bring police people. They will leave.
Right.
They will leave.
Sure. That's fine. So we can move on from this Galamsey issue and go to the $2.25 billion bond that was issued in April this year and the issues that have come subsequently. The minority taking issue with this, lodging a number of petitions. I think one with Shraj, that was done by the NDC, Ashanti Regional Youth Organizer, I believe. And then there is also a petition that was sent to the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission. But this week we have information that the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning is to appear before Parliament sometime next week to answer questions.
Is this economic planning? I thought the economic planning was hived to NDPC.
Yeah. It's Ministry of Finance. My bad. Forgive me. So Ministry of Finance is, the Minister of Finance is supposed to, appear before Parliament. Now, here's the thing. There's the Shraj petition, which is pending. Then there's Parliament, and Parliament's calling or summoning Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta to come and answer questions about the bond. But before this, we do know that when the minority earlier on issued its concerns about the issuance of the bond, the Ministry of Finance responded and issued a press statement. My question is, do we expect anything different from the minister when he goes before Parliament? Anything different from what the statement contained? Dr. Amejinapo, I'll start with you.
Well, I think it's quite surprising this issue has dragged for that long. In the sense that I think the story broke somewhere a couple of months ago.
It was issued in April, so...
April, okay. But it boils down to corruption. That's what it is. It boils down to corruption in the sense that there's an accusation by the opposition that the Minister for Finance having some relationship with, is it Frank Templeton or, happened to have engaged in some kind of dubious relationship relative to this.
Raising issues of conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. And that the minority is asking for clarity. In fact, this gentleman at Dawuga threatens to go to court that if the interest that is going to be paid is not made known, he's going to court. So it's a very simple issue. Parliament has summoned the minister to come and clarify to the what? To the citizens of this republic through its what? Its representatives. And I think that is the right way to go. And that in itself probably will bring some kind of what? Finality or closure to this matter. My worry when it comes to this issue was that at the point in time, the Minister of, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice was more or less deemed to be involved in this issue. And if you remember, the accusation started that by virtue of the fact that she works for one of the arms of that company, probably there's a conflict of interest in that issue. And she came to say that, look, I don't even know that this whole deal has been worked out. That was a little bit worried for me, because an agreement of this sort, I would have expected that the Attorney General should have been aware, or whatever it is. But fast track forward. I think at the end of the day, what we as Ghanaians need is that we need clarity on most of these issues. Because perception probably sometimes, corruption probably sometimes can be that of what perception. You understand? Unless you come to clarify the issues before we'll be able to know where we are going. So I think the onus lies on government, and especially the Minister of Finance, even though the saying has always been that whoever accuses must be able to prove. I think the onus lies on the Minister of Finance to try as much as possible to bring finality to this issue. And that is where I applaud the Speaker of Parliament for calling on the minister and I think he's given a week to come by the 8th of June. By the 8th of June to come and clarify this issue. I think for us Ghanaians, we've moved a long way. And one of the topics that I believe we'll be talking about has to do with corruption and stuff like that. All this thing boils down to corruption. And I think the government has a responsibility to be able to more or less build the confidence of the people that he's doing the right thing and he's doing it in the interest of the nation, not for selfish parochial interest. Right.
Mr. Maliba, so this parliamentary process, will it be a fact-finding thing or what? I'm trying to understand how that works with the Shraj process, which is currently pending.
There are two separate issues. Parliament has an oversight responsibility.
Right.
And this is the oversight responsibility that it is evoking and asking the Minister of Finance to appear before it and clarify certain issues. Just as all of us are not clear about the way the transactions went, I know members of Parliament are equally in that same situation. But the petition at Shraj now is a case of where a public officer has, okay, let me put it this way. Ken, who is a public officer and has led government to engage in this transaction, has his private conduct being questioned. So it's about conflict of interest. And the whole thing is that because the person who bought 95% of the bonds is also a director in Enterprise Insurance, a company, Enterprise Group, a company which Ken is no longer a director, but is a shareholder. People are saying that, oh, he's no more a director. No. Shareholders have interest in the profits of their company. So he's a shareholder. And the law allows him to still hold his shares. The law will not allow him to continue to be a director. Now, we have had the Deputy Attorney General responding to the petition on behalf of Ken. And I say that two things are happening. Either they are being mischievous or they do not understand the case before Shraj. The case before Shraj is a petition against the person of Ken Ofori-Atta and not the ministry.
Right.
So to have an Attorney General, or be it even deputy, responding to the suit or to the petition is bad in law. I've heard people say that, but the interrogations or the questions that are to be answered by Ken also border on the Attorney General. And I say that, yes, let Ken carry his cross and let Attorney General also carry his cross.
Cannot represent him.
Attorney General cannot represent
at that level.
See, let's assume that the Shraj comes to the conclusion that Ken has benefited and he should refund some money to the state. Just like in the Wayomi case. Who is going to enforce that? Wouldn't it be the Attorney General? So can the Attorney General act for Ken, turn around, act against him? So clearly, you can see that there's a grand scheme to cover up. Because when we get to that point where he probably he has to proceed against Ken to recover some monies, lawyers will line up and go to Supreme Court and say that what the Attorney General is doing is improper, because you cannot act for somebody, have information, you know, professional misconduct, and then turn around and act for him again. So the whole exercise will be botched. But can you imagine the Attorney General who told the whole of this country that she was not privy, she's unaware of the transactions, and even wrote a letter to Adawudu saying that, confirming that she's unaware, she can't provide information. How can that same Attorney General all of a sudden be knowledgeable in this whole exercise so as to be answering questions in details?
Wasn't that by the deputy AG and not the AG herself?
You see, this gymnastics you are playing, I know is that Attorney General.
Who is playing?
Not you. Not you. Not you as a person.
Well, then say it accordingly.
That's why I say that, look, Attorney General's department is Attorney General's department. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if it is his deputy who is answering the questions. So when the questions, that Dawudu sent his questions to the AG, was it possible for the AG to then ask his deputy, who is so knowledgeable?
But the reason I'm saying this is this in the same way that you are distinguishing between the person and the institution, same way Madam Gloria Kufuor, in the alleged conflict of interest in the whole scheme, should be distinguished from the role of the AG's office. That's why I'm asking this question.
No. The reason why that distinction is made is that a public officer in his office decided to allow his private interest to supersede that of the public interest. That's why his conduct is being questioned. I don't think that the deputy AG and the AG have gotten themselves in that situation where they have allowed their private interest. What I'm saying is that the questions that were asked of the Attorney General were questions that she was supposed to answer as the head of the institution. Whoever has the information is under her. Okay, did she do due diligence? Did she ask her deputy whether the deputy was seized with that information? She didn't. And now, your deputy has become so knowledgeable and is answering questions for Shiraj. Clearly, you can see something fishy about all these transactions. But it is good. It is when the frog dies that you see its full length. It is good that the matter is at Shiraj. There will be a day that all will meet there. Now, they've raised issues of jurisdiction. That Shiraj had no jurisdiction when you read there. And I say that, look,
no jurisdiction in an aspect of it, not the whole thing, because I think I can't remember exactly what, but raising about the issuance of the bond.
We are talking about,
but the conflict of interest, yes, but they raised issue about the jurisdiction in respect of
what they should
the
know
issuance
is that
of the bond.
The whole issue that is before Shiraj is hinged on conflict of interest, nothing more, nothing less. Mm-hmm. Now, once Shiraj is able to determine that, I think that that is the gravamen of the situation. The other issues, I think that Shiraj will determine whether it has jurisdiction or not. But the crux of the matter has to do with conflict of interest. So,
but another thing they raised in there is that you talk about conflict of interest, but you haven't been able to pinpoint exactly, like particularize those aspects or the aspects of the conflict of interest you're referring to. That's one of the issues they have raised. And for that matter, they think the petition is not perhaps well-grounded.
So look.
Quickly respond to that and I move to the others.
This is just a paragraph. The minority in its conflict of interest allegation said a non-executive director on the board of the investment firm Franklin Templeton, who purchased 95% of the 2.5 million bond, 2.52 billion, is also chairman of Enterprise Group, which has links to the Attorney General and the Minister of Finance. What again do you need? What particulars do you need again?
But was this contained in the petition?
It
because
is. It is. And in the petition, they even said that he was a friend. So I don't know what kind of particularization they are talking about. He's here. So it's a case of trying to clutch on to straws, but I'm gratified that there's a forum to deal with these matters. And at the end of the day, whatever ruling comes from Shiraj, I think we should all abide by it.
Very well. Mr. Jantwa, what do you make of all of this process going on with regards to the 2.25?
Abner,
yes.
The question I ask is that the NDC dealt with Frank Templeton, didn't they? For quite some time. At the time they had dealings with Frank Templeton, did they know that he was chairman of the investment firm, the chairman of the enterprise group?
Can I?
But let me finish. And at the time, did they know that Kenneth Oriata and the Attorney General were part and parcel of this enterprise
But at that
group?
point, Kenneth Oriata and the AGs, Madam Gloria Kufu, had no business in government. They were not public officials. And so perhaps it wouldn't really even be irrelevant.
Yes, I understand that. And so, based on past work done with Frank Templeton, perhaps Kenneth Oriata and co. decided that the man knows Ghana, he's dealt with bonds all this while, and because of that, we continue to use them. Now, as the opposition is saying that the Minister of Finance and the Attorney General have some interest in the enterprise group, they should have excused themselves from it. And because they didn't excuse themselves from it, there's a question of conflict of interest there. Now, maybe Honorable will be able to tell me, because I haven't heard Kenneth Oriata or the Attorney General come out to say that they are part and parcel of this enterprise group. Have they? And if they haven't, then there is some truth in what they're saying in terms of the conflict of interest. Now, it's not only the conflict of interest situation that the opposition is talking about. They're also talking about it was done in secrecy. It denied other investors the opportunity, the time span in which it was done as compared to the other time span that was done for other bonds. And because of that, it is shrouded in some...
in lack transparency and all of that.
Transparency. Now, if that is true, and the case has gone to Shraj, let's wait and hear what Shraj says. You were saying that the Speaker of the House has invited the Minister of Finance to come in and answer questions. Let him come in and answer the questions, and let's see where it leads to. I feel, I know Ken, and this is my own personal opinion. I know Ken, and although I know him as a friend, I don't know him in business circles. And from what I know of him, he tends to want to do the right thing at the right time at all times. So I kind of find it difficult that he would want to, especially with a government bond, try as much as possible to have a conflict of interest situation with such an important instrument that is going to help the country. But having said that, it could happen that there are other influences around his, interest in the enterprise group that would probably bear on him for him to overlook some of these issues that we're talking about. The jury is out. Let's see what happens, and probably by next week, by the
8th.
Yeah, by the 8th.
If all goes well.
If all goes well. I don't know when the Shraj 1-2 is coming to fruition.
I have no, right.
If all goes well, we'll get to the bottom of it, because this 2.25 billion is supposed to be a domestic bond, is it? But I've heard that it's a domestic bond, but in a way...
Exactly, the minority has raised issues about that it's not...
Exactly. So let's see how it goes. But, in general, I believe when Ghanaians vote politicians into power, they expect them to have a duty of care in terms of how they handle, you know, the economy, and they handle the finances of this country. And so, if personal interest is coming into something like this, especially with the new government who has talked about change,
protecting the public purse,
and we realize that these things are happening. If it so happens, and it's only an allegation at this point in time, and it so happens that it's true, then it brings a huge question mark on what the president was saying. And I'll repeat this, and I keep repeating it. The president has a vision that he knows where that vision is coming from because of the length of time he has been in opposition and is now in power. The people who he has put in place, if they can't link into that vision, then it is proven that some of these things are true, is going to put him in a very, very difficult position. And so I believe that he would take personal interest in making sure that the right thing is done. And if it so happens that it is found guilty, and these were some of the things I indicated during the appointment of, you know, some of these ministers, that in appointing a relative to a sensitive position like Minister of Finance, if it so happens that he does things that are ultra-virus to what is required, how do you sack him? Because he has
you apply the law. I mean,
well,
he's subject to the same law. So
well, we have seen in the past that it hasn't happened.
Right.
So if it doesn't happen, where does that put everything?
Very well. That's fine. Let me move on. Honourable.
Right.
We will take some message, but I would need you to address an issue that the minority has raised, that yes, Mr. Kenufriata's petition, the petition to Shraj in respect of Mr. Kenufriata was in respect of his person, distinct from the ministry he's head of. So why do you have the AG's office responding to the petition? Because the AG is not a representative of his person.
Yeah, I will just start off by giving a little information to what happened in Parliament within the week. Irrespective of what is happening in Tribe, I think Parliament as a body also has a right to look into some of these allegations. And for the first time, Parliament itself, as a growing institution, tried out a procedure that has never been tried under this constitution, which was a half-hour motion. And it was interesting to witness it, for the first time. I believe that the minority did put up the motion, was supported by the majority. The finance minister has been invited. By the time he comes, he will clarify the issues or the allegations that has been raised again about this particular bond issue. But you see, those bond issues are not things that the finance minister or the Ministry of Finance does based on their whims and caprices or when they think that we should be done. There is a calendar in place. And because of the peculiar arrangements in place in a first year of a government's term in office, like we have in 2017, the first 3 months of this year, our budget was an appropriation from the previous year. So it was part of the arrangements to make sure that the shortfall in government expenditure within the first quarter, and then also to make provision for securities that were maturing within the first quarter to be taken care of. This relationship between Mr. Kenufriata, the FT group and enterprise and all that, yes, there might be a relationship. But what Ken has said and continue to say is that at no point did he interfere in the process. In fact, bonds are actually issued by the Bank of Ghana, and there are guidelines to it. Bonds are not like instruments that are taken to the market for anybody to take part. There are licensed people who take part in some of these bids. In Ghana, and for this particular one, there were 3 of them. SAS, I think Barclays and Stanbic. They were the only authorized people to be able to buy into those bonds. I still think that those are allegations, but nobody is proving the fact that Ken Oforiatta, as a Minister of Finance, took advantage of his position to exploit the process.
Well, that is up for determination. It's with Strach. But the question here is,
It's brought to you by Heaven Insecticide Spray and Mosquito Coil and Donko Bitters, and supported by Umia FM 95.1 in Accra. Music, it's bigger.
Welcome back. This is New Day Saturday edition. We're just about 5 minutes to wrap up here, so we'll do this quickly. I'll go back to the panel quickly, they wrap up, and then read some messages, and then we call it a day. Honourable, back to you. Yes, my substantive question.
Yeah, what was your question?
My question was, the minority has raised this issue about the propriety or otherwise of the AG's office responding to the petition to Strach, the Strach petition, yes, involving Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta as a person and not, the office of the Minister of Finance.
My quick reaction to that is I am not too sure, but I would think that if the petition was actually taken to the Ministry of Finance, then it's in a place for the AG to respond to it, because that is a government official lawyer, and so in cases that affect any legality within the government, it would be right for the AG's office to actually answer to some of those things. But if the petition was actually taken to Ken, I am not too sure if that was the arrangement. But since the AG is done this, else I'm sure Ken is always in the position to get the best of legal representation if it comes to that. So my quick reaction to that thinking would be that maybe the petition was actually taken to the ministry, and so the AG is the right body to actually respond to.
Very well. Quickly, just to be sure of this, Mr. Maliba, you're not sure. Do you know exactly where the petition was sent to? Because he's raising a valid point here.
Yes, but initially, when they were seeking for extension of time, it was a director at the ministry who wrote that letter. Now, you also have them, and they have worsened it by also making the Attorney General to be answering his questions.
But I'm sure the director of the ministry...
This is a matter which is personal to the AG.